If I were starting a podcast in 2026, it would be completely different than how I started my podcast in 2019. 2026 is the best time to start a podcast, especially if you're a coach, if you're a business owner, and I'm going to explain why in this video. But first, why should you listen to me? My name is Edwin Melendez, and I've been podcasting for the last 7 years. I worked with companies like iHeart, Spotify. I was showcased by SiriusXM with their podcast client Spotlight here. You can check out this article here written about me and my Wrestling DeLorean podcast. And I run a community where I help hundreds of podcasters grow their podcasts every month and gain 5 to 7 new high ticket clients by their podcast. So before we get into everything else, if you are ready to lock in, I'm going to be dropping a lot of value, especially how you should start your podcast in 2026. So if you're ready to lock in, we're going to talk about it. If you're not ready to lock in, if you can't sit for the next 15, 20 minutes and check out this video and really take in all the information I'm giving you, then maybe it's not for you, and that's okay. But if you are, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for being here, and let's get going. So in 2026, how would I start a podcast? If I was brand new, even if I had a podcast in the past, even if I dabbled into podcasting and I was starting over in 2026, especially if I was a coach or a business owner, it's all about changing the mindset. See, podcasts are not hobby content anymore. They're media assets. When it comes to podcasting it holds such a large presence in media nowadays. You hear the terms, everybody has a podcast. And it's true. There's hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of podcasts that are created every single month. I believe there was a stat that said that last year alone in the United States, not even worldwide, but in the United States, there was, I think, 30 billion podcast listens, which is insane to think about how big podcasting has grown. I've been listening to podcasts since 2012. And let me tell you, it was a very different landscape in 2012 than it is in 2026. But first, we have to understand that it is not about hobby content anymore. They're media assets. You can make a lot of money from your podcast. And I'm not talking about going the traditional route of downloads and ad revenue and sponsorships and affiliate marketing. We're going to talk about how you can make money with your podcast in 2026 by growing your clientele through your podcast. See, the goal isn't downloads, it's trust, authority, and client acquisition. You could scale your podcast to 100,000 downloads, to 200,000 downloads, to 300,000 downloads, and still not make a penny off it if you're not using the right ad and sponsorship strategy. And you could also scale your podcast to 100,000 downloads and be a coach or have the authority and make one person who listens feel something, and that person signs up to do coaching with you, the one-on-one coaching, whether that's a high-ticket coaching, whether it's a low-ticket coaching, it doesn't matter. You get paid out quicker working with that one person than you would be trying to build up to get ads and sponsorships. See, I would build a podcast backwards from monetization, not from a topic idea. It's not about the topics anymore. See, every episode must support a business outcome, in my opinion. So if I was starting in 2026, it would be, how can I relate this podcast to my current business and how can this help each other grow? I'm going to break this down into a couple little pieces here, but starting with the offer is the most important. Before naming the podcast, I define who I want to work with, be very specific, niche down, because that is going to be the listeners that are really going to want to take this serious. Also, what problems I help them solve. What problems are my listeners coming to the podcast with and answers that they're walking away from the podcast with, and what they would pay me for right now. What can I offer them that someone would want to pay me for? Am I a fitness coach? Am I a mindset coach? Am I a dietitian? And if I am knowledgeable about whatever I'm coaching or knowledgeable about whatever I'm talking about on the podcast, is it to the extent that someone would pay me to work with me one-on-one? When you have a yes to all three of those questions, that's when you could build that perfect offer. Here's an example. Audience, coaches and consultants. The problem, inconsistent lead flow, and then the outcome, 5 to 7 high-ticket clients on a monthly basis using your podcast. Now, the offer that I will give in my podcast would be based around working with coaches and consultants, building their clientele by 5 to 7 high-ticket customers on a monthly basis by working on their lead flow through their podcast. The podcast exists to pre-sell this outcome. Think about it backwards, reverse engineer it. What outcome do you want to come out of? And how can you reach that outcome sooner by working on the podcast more efficiently? See, positioning the podcast niche more than vanity, it's so important. I would not start with a generic show. Now, it's okay to have passion projects. I have passion projects. I have my podcast that is, I have numerous podcasts, but I have a podcast that's a Dragon Ball podcast because I'm a big anime nerd. That's fine. It's cool to have your passion projects. But if you are trying to leverage a podcast to build clientele, you have to make sure that it is completely niched down to the exact person that you want to have as your desired client. You cannot talk about things that are so vague because you want to make sure that the person that is your desired client really feels the message from your podcast. So it is a natural next step for them to want to work with you. See, I choose one of these proven platforms or formats: authority building, teaching framework, deal flow podcast, conversations with ideal clients, or proof podcast, case studies, audits, breakdowns. So that's how you build authority in podcasting and around your coaching business. If your business is something that's along the lines of like a fitness coach, right? Then you're going to want to show how you could turn somebody's life around, how you could bring them results by showing case studies. Bring on past people as guests that you worked with. Talk about their stories, how they went from A to B, how they had a complete body transformation. These are the guests that are going to inspire future clients from you. And that's how you break it down. Proof podcast, deal flow podcast, or authority building podcast. That is the exact proven formats that brings you high clienteles every single month. See, if a stranger listens to one episode, do they know instantly what this podcast is about and who this podcast is for? That is what you have to ask yourself. If somebody listens for the first time, nobody is, expecting them to know everything about you. But if they listen to the first time, do they get a good idea of who this episode is for, who this podcast is for, if this podcast could help them in their life? Or is this just something that they're going to hear and be like, there's 100 more just like this, so I'm just going to go to one of those. Find out who it's for, what the problem solves, and why I'm credible. That would be how I create a proven format. What have I done in the past to help others? And how can I use that as a case study to show that I know what I'm talking about on this podcast? Or am I just talking on my ass? That you have to really be honest with yourself. It goes back to the question, what knowledge do I have that someone would want to pay for? Number 4 is naming, title, and SEO. Now, we talked about titles and SEO. You can check out my episode on titles and SEO and cover art. You can also check out the episode that I had on episode framework. We'll talk about that next. But SEO is so important. In 2026, podcast SEO matters more than ever. See, I would use problem-based titles, not clever names. Problem-based titles. Optimize for Spotify, Apple, and YouTube searches. Outcome plus audience plus mechanism. Example, podcasting for high-ticket clients. Grow your coaching business with authority content. This is so important because if you're just starting out, if I'm starting out with a new podcast in 2026, how can I make sure that the algorithm, even in my first couple episodes, is putting me on the front pages? How can I make sure that my algorithm is using certain special keywords that are going to make you want to click that episode? How can I make sure that these keywords are talking to the listeners before they even hit play on the podcast? Like I said, I talk deeply about SEO and how it could really help you grow organically from the jump. So make sure you check out the video on diving deep into podcast SEO. Next is episode framework. Now, we always talk about episode framework, and it is very important that you structure your podcast the proper way. Hooks, body having sound bites, and a CTA at the end. This is how you get retention for your podcast. Because especially if you have people joining and you finally get people to listen to your podcast, are they staying for the full episode? Are they really grasping everything that is talked about in that episode? It all has to do with your episode framework. Cold open hook, a bold claim, a pain point, a contrarian truth. It's so important to make sure in the first 5 to 7 seconds that you grasp that listener so they want to stay for the continuation of the episode, all the way from the beginning to the end. Next, you want to make sure why this matters now. Tie it to anything that is going to make someone want to take action as soon as the episode is over. You don't want someone to get some knowledge or get value out of your episode and then sit back and like let it marinate. You want somebody to be excited to hop on a call with you as soon as the episode's done. They want to take that next step and work with you one-on-one and be coached by you, right? So make sure you tie it to money, time, and growth. The core framework: clear, actionable, and repeatable. 3 to 5 points. You want to make sure that you're always dropping sound bites. You want to make sure that you're doing things to wake people up and always dropping value. Give value. So many people are so scared that if they give too much value, then no one's going to want to work with them. But the more value you give, the more it builds that trust and proof with somebody that you know exactly what you're talking about. So give value. Proof or examples: personal stories, client wins, and breakdowns. Like I said before, if you have people that you worked with and you actually help transform them, bring them on as a guest. Let them tell their story. Show testimonials. Show how you know what you're talking about and show that you have people that you've transformed by working with you. And this is what's going to build that trust and proof. A CTA mid-episode or at the end of the episode, you want to make sure that you have one clear CTA. No, follow me here, follow me there, follow me this. I always talk about this when it comes to framework: a clear CTA, one strong CTA, and you want to make sure that it is always something that's going to take them to the next step to work with you. You know, it's cool to say follow me on Instagram or subscribe to my YouTube or download the podcast. But if you have a coaching program and it's one-on-one coaching and they need to book a call with you, shouldn't that be the CTA for them to want to take the podcast and say, hey, you know what? This episode gave me a lot of value. I would like to learn more, so let me book a call with this person. That should be your CTA. That's how I would do it. And then the strong close: one action, one outcome. Explain to them what they get for taking that action, that CTA. If it is to book a call with you, hey, book a call with me, and on that call, we'll discuss yada, yada. If I'm a fitness coach, we'll discuss your goals and how we can help you get there in half the time that you expect. Something like that. Number 6, short form versus distribution. I would not rely on people finding the podcast. My strategy would be record video first, pull daily short form clips, TikTok, Reels, Shorts on YouTube, and use clips as a top of funnel content. You want to make sure that you're constantly promoting. Even if you're just starting out, make sure that you're constantly promoting on social media. Put the clips up, put little short reels, and always make sure that they have a format of value and a CTA. Value, CTA. Show them why you know what you're talking about and how they could use your coaching to help them better their lives, no matter what that coaching is, right? CTA comes after value, but that's how your short form clips should be. Make people excited to work with you. Each clip points the full episode, a free download, or a book call. Like I said, one full CTA. That's it. Monetization from day one. See, this is where a lot of people say, oh, well, you know, if I start a podcast now, I have to build it up to 100,000 downloads. I have to get sponsorships. I have to work on ads. I have to make sure that I have, you know, affiliate marketing. I got to get merch. No. If you're a coach going into podcasting in 2026, you could start by day one making money. If you are primarily going after one-on-one coaching, it only takes one person to listen to the episode and find value in it and say, hey, I would like to work with this person one-on-one. You could offer audits or done-for-you services, which you could charge for. High-ticket programs, communities, working with people on school. I have a school community. I love the school community. I love the school platform. You could create a school and have people go to your school community from your podcast. You could charge for their admission to your school community. That will help you start monetizing that podcast from day one. You don't even have to wait until you have a core following. You just need to have it so niche down that the message is speaking directly to that one person that you're trying to reach, that one person that would relate to the message, and that person will take action if you're giving them the value needed. Now, the CTA hierarchy: free value. Like I just said, free value. Value is key. Don't try to think like, oh, well, if I give too much value, then, you know, they're not going to want to work with me. Listen, nowadays with ChatGPT, with AI, you could find out anything anywhere. If you're a fitness coach and you really want to break down, you know, how can I lose 20 pounds in 2 months? You could go to ChatGPT, right? It's not like your knowledge is special. As hard as that sounds, like, I don't mean to sound harsh, but by giving that value, it shows that you know what you're talking about. people want to work with humans. They don't always want to work with AI. So by showing that you know what you're talking about, showing that you could get action and you could get desirable outcomes, they're going to want to work with you because you're giving them free value. This value could be in just videos like this. It could be documents that you could, put online for free. It could be checklists, roadmaps, like I said, school communities, whatever it is. Free value is key. Next, a free strategy call. Book a one-on-one call with me and don't try to sell them on that call. Say, hey, on this one-on-one call, we're going to discuss, we'll go over your workout plan, or we'll go over your diet plan, and I'll give you tips that might help you out quicker. That's free value. And then you hit them with the paid offer. Hey, if you like more of this, if you want to work with me one-on-one so we make sure that we get to that outcome that you're looking for, I do have a coaching plan. This is what I could do for you, blah, blah, blah. That's how you set it up. Sponsors come later. Clients come first. Remember that. Sponsors come later. Clients come first. Always put your clients first, and you can start making money within the first couple weeks of podcasting. Now let's talk about what I would ignore completely. So there's a lot of vanity metrics, right? I always talk about vanity metrics and why it does not matter when it comes to coaching. So download obsession, don't worry about how many downloads you have, even if it's 5 downloads. If you have 5 people downloading your podcast and 4 of those people are your desired client and you have a high ticket program that they may be interested in, out of 5 downloads, you could make a lot of money. But if you're so worried about downloads, you're going to start sacrificing your show's integrity to get vanity metrics. What does it matter if you get downloads? What would it matter if you go viral with your podcast? If you have a coaching podcast and you're trying to, really put out there that you know what you're talking about to build your coaching agency or whatever it is, does it matter if you have 100,000 downloads, but no one's really there for your coaching? That's why it is very, very, very important to not focus on the metrics of your podcast. Just focus on the value, focus on the content. Fancy studios. You don't need a fancy studio. I'm not in no, $100 million fancy studio right now. I'm in my bedroom. I'm talking to you from my bedroom. I worked with SiriusXM, iHeartRadio. I'm currently on Spotify's Megaphone network. Why? Because I record a podcast. I'm consistent and I make sure that podcast has value, and it is recorded from my bedroom. You don't need the fancy studios. You don't need the fancy equipment. You can make it work as long as what you have has quality. If you have quality content, you don't need to have the fancy studios as a veil. You could just put out your quality content and it's going to resonate with people. You don't need the viral fantasies. Like I said, same thing with download obsession. Don't worry about how many followers you have on social media. Don't worry about how many downloads you have on your podcast. Don't worry about how many views you have on your YouTube. It doesn't matter. If you're so niche down, you are going to want to be able to talk to one person and have that person feel something and make that person take that next step with you. If you're so worried about getting 100,000 downloads, but nobody's buying your coaching, are you really focused on the right thing? Long intros, that's a no-go. Completely ignore it. You don't need the long intro. Start your episode with a hook, a quick 20 to 30 second intro, talk about what the episode is about, and then go right into your podcast. If you fill your podcast with value and less about the fluff, that is going to be what gets winning podcasters, winning clients. That is why you don't need the fluff. Cut the fluff out. Hey, you don't need the fancy, intro music. You don't need the awesome, what we call that, radio voices like you are now listening to. You don't need that shit. Just go right into it and start your value. Consistency without strategy. A lot of people say, hey, if you're consistent, then you'll make it, right? If you just show up every day, you'll make it. Yes, that's true to an extent. But if you have no structure and you're just showing up every day and there's no structure to what you're doing, in my opinion, that's a waste of time. In my opinion, you're just wasting your time. If you're not doing something with structure, if you're not doing something with a framework to get results, then what's the point of doing it in the first place? So the last thing apart about this, these are the things you want to avoid. Just focus on leveraging your clarity, your systems, and your value. The real goal of the podcast is not the product. Your business is the product. The podcast is announcing your product. See, the podcast is the sales engine that warms up cold leads, pre-qualifies buyers, and builds trust at scale. It is not the product. You can make hundreds of thousands of dollars on podcasting, or you can make millions of dollars with your coaching. You can make millions of dollars with your company, with your business. And yeah, you could do both. But if you're looking to make money right away in 2026 with your podcast, then you have to understand the podcast is not the product. I'm the product. Working with me is the product. So book a call with me. You don't want someone to just be a fan of your podcast. You want someone to be so touched by your message and by your value that they want to work with you one-on-one. If done right, listeners feel like they already know me before they book a call. And finally, the final thoughts, how I would win in 2026. If I was starting today, I'd launch smaller, niche harder, sell sooner, and systemize faster. Authority beats algorithms. It's all about everything I talked about in this video. You want to build your authority. You want to give value. You want to show that you know exactly what you're talking about. And you could be the solution to their pain points, to their problems. And that is how you win in 2026 with the podcast. People, if you're getting any value with this, if you're a coach, if you're a business owner, and you would like to work with me one-on-one, then I'm going to leave my calendar in the description. Book a call with me. Let's start your strategies to build a podcast in 2026 that gets you 5 to 7 high-paying ticket clients every single month. I'll catch you on the next video. Thank you so much.